So this is class 152 on the Golden Doves. I have about 5 minutes, so we'll be rather quick. Page 84, right? We were talking about textuality and how during the days of the Second Temple, around the beginning of the days of the Tannaim, started by the Bi Akiva, there was this attempt to create a formal version of the Torah Shebe'al Peh. And this formal version, the text, the composition of words, will now be the way the Torah Shebe'al Peh will be transmitted from generation to generation. Until now, the Torah Shebe'al Peh could have been transmitted in any particular composition of words you wanted to transmit it in. And then with the development of the idea of text, which is a composition of words, now we had to distinguish between written and oral text, right? And what does a written text mean? What does an oral text mean, right? So all these things, these are ideas that the Chachamim begun to think about. And we said that so the written text is a text where the letters are duly registered, which is to say every letter in the Torah is registered. This is the letter. This is the way to spell it, right? I'll give you an example. You can theoretically, you can spell sotah with a samech or a sin. From the perspective of the Torah Shebe'al Peh, zelo ma'aleh velo morid. It could be there as a grammatical matter. You decide you want samech and not sin. That's a different story. But the letters are not registered, right? So how you spell the words is irrelevant to the Chachamim of the Torah Shebe'al Peh. There is no registered. There is no registration of the letters, and because in the Torah Shebichtav you have the registration of the letters, you can make derashot on the letters, right? Not just on the words. And that's what we got up to. This perception, or the perception of the past, was also affected by this concern. Now we've begun to look back at the past. So you're in the days of the Bi Akiva, and now you're looking backwards towards the past, and you begin to look at the past through the prism of written text versus oral text, right? And that changed the way we perceive the past. So, for example, the title for the sages of the preceding generations, Sofer, Ezra HaSofer. So why was Ezra HaSofer called the Sofer? So, of course, the word Sofer means a scribe, right? But it was interpreted to mean he who counted every letter of the Torah. So the Gemara says in Masechet Kedushin that Sofer means the person who counts, because every letter of the Torah Shebichtav, the written text, is registered. So you have to count the letters. Gnosticism served to endow the written aspects of the text with intellectual and religious significance. So around the days of the end of the Bet HaMikdash, with the early Christians, there was the Gnostics who were themselves, of course, minim. Many of them were Jews, but it was a phony Kabbalah. It was a phony mystical belief. But the point being that this phony mystical belief attached itself in many ways on the focus on letters, right? So, meaning the Chachamim, the Tanaim, the Bi Akiva, begun the idea we have to focus on the idea of a written text having duly registered letters. So the mystics took that and placed mystical ideas on the letters. So you see how this new thinking of textuality, it of course had incredible ramifications for rabbinic thinking, but it also had ramifications. Let me know when you're ready to leave them in the middle of a class, but as soon as you're ready, you'll tell me. So it also had ramifications for the way the mystics and the Gnostics began to perceive things. Okay, and then there was also legitimate books, of course. So anyway, let's continue. Legitimate books such as Sefer Yetzirah, the book of creation. Right, so we know Rabbeinu Saadia Gaon and Yehuda Barceloni. They speak about Sefer Yetzirah. So the book of creation discusses the letters and the meaning that's attributed to letters. So you see how this became an intellectual pursuit. And Otiyot Rabbi Akiva, the alphabet of Rabbi Akiva, in which creation is conceived in terms of letters. So you see how this new movement started by Rabbi Akiva, which led to the distinction between written and oral text, which led to the focus on what is a written text, which led to the conclusion that a written text is the duly registered letters. Now the letters acquire meaning. Now the mystics gave meaning to the letters. So, in which creation is conceived in terms of letters, illustrate the textuological function of Gnosticism. So part of what the Gnostics were doing where they were taking this concept and running with it, albeit to an area of phony mysticism, right? But still very interesting to see that. Not all written texts had attained the same textuological level. Some rabbis believed that there were texts to be read, but not to be written or expounded. Very interesting. So now we understand what a written text is. Now, within written text, there's different levels of textuality. So there's, for example, some texts were meant to be read. Nitena likrot, avalo nitena likatev. Or, right, it could be read but not written. What does that mean? Or nitena likrot, avalo nitena lihidaresh. What does that mean? That you can't make darashot in it. It should be remembered that the Hagiographa contained the books that could not be read. That is in the liturgical services. So, for example, the Ketuvim. There was a point in the Bet HaKnesset where people would read the Ketuvim. We would read the Chumash. We would read the Nevi'im. We wouldn't read the Ketuvim from a Sefer Torah, meaning the scrolls. There was a Sefer Nevi'im, by the way. There was a Sefer Torah, and there was a Sefer Nevi'im that was actually written, right? But you wouldn't read the Ketuvim from a formal scroll, right? Keri Abisibur, from a formal scroll. That's interesting. So nitena lichtov, אבל לא ניתנה לקרות. See what it means, לא ניתנה לקרות? So you see there's different levels of textuality. We're going to go into this in greater detail. So it should be remembered that the Hebrew distinction, ketuvim, the writings, may thus be understood in a restrictive sense. Now you understand what the word ketuvim means. Why ketuvim? The books that were written. Also the Chumash was written, right? Ala Gevil, or Ala Kelaf, right? Also the Nevi'im was written. They used to write it Ala Gevil or Ala Kelaf, just like the Chumash. So what's special about the ketuvim, which was also written Ala Gevil or Ala Kelaf? Books that, unlike the Torah and the prophets, are only to be written but not to be read. So that's why it's called Ketuvim. Ketuvim, you only write it. You never read the Ketuvim in public from a Sefer Ketuvim, right? The oral tradition had only a vocal, not a written. Okay, so that's right. So now you see the different levels of Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim. Those are all written, and there's different levels of textuality there. Then you have the Torah Shebe'al Peh. The oral tradition had only a vocal, not a written text. Right? So in the Torah Shebe'al Peh you have words. You have a composition of words. That's a vocal. It's not written because there was no letters. Right? So that's important. Elu devarim she'en lahem shi'ur. Is the word shi'ur, does it have a yod, shi'ur, or shi'ur? I mean, okay. Meaning from the perspective of the Torah, it's a grammatical concern. It's not a concern of the Torah Shebe'al Peh. The Torah Shebe'al Peh did not register these letters. You understand? Right? So, Elu devarim she'en lahem shi'ur. Pe'ah, ve'habikurim, ve'hare'ayon, u'gminut hasadim. There is the word hasadim. Is it with a samech or with a sin? Right? Irrelevant. Right? It doesn't matter. It's again, that's a question of language, whatever you want to say about it. But the Torah Shebe'al Peh registered words, didn't register letters. We'll stop it here.